They hate
in about 2 minutes.
Red Bulls fans, there's a contingent that absolutely hate Tom Barlow.
Oh, really?
It's really deserved, yeah. I know he had a rough first season with them, but he's been, I don't know. I'm biased, of course, because I love Tom, but.
I find it funny that Brian White and Barlow have like the same stats that season, and then White goes over to the Vancouver and does really well. I find that interesting. That's why I wouldn't mind bringing Barlow over because I'm curious if someone else could get more out of him.
Yeah, I'm not sure he entirely fits with the type of strike putting out there, but I do love Tom.
Me too. Okay. I'm just going to open up Twitter and we'll get started here. Okay. Hit record. Hit the correct button this time. Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone to Flyover Footy. We got a full house tonight. We got Matt Baker, we got Jake, we got Stuart, and we got Santiago. I'm Phil. Hope you guys have had a good week. We had a game, and we're going to talk about that. But just before we do that, Jake, let's check in with you, man. It's been a little while. How have you been?
It's going okay. Last week's been crazy. Honestly, I have not paid attention too much to St. Louis City. I missed that game, unfortunately, over the weekend.
Me too.
Tough one to miss. I got hit with some of the flooding / overflow. So my basement flooded a couple times over the last week. Also have had family in town over the weekend, which is perfect timing. We had a great time with them. But it's been pretty busy for me as of lately. So I'm just gonna crack open my beer and ready to sit back and listen to you guys talk about City.
Well, I mean, I'd say the craziest thing about the double flood, because it was like a flood and a half, right? Or like a double flood and a single flood, if you want to call it that. But you had Roto-Rooter come over and put fans in your basement. And you had to call them on the second flood to be like, it's flooding again. What do you want me to do with your electric fans that are being flooded right now?
So luckily flood number 2 wasn't as bad because it was Tuesday morning when all the rain happened, and I woke up at 5 a.m. to my basement with 2 feet of water in it. And I know, I'll preface this by saying a lot of people had it way worse than me, so we're very fortunate. Absolutely. Our basement's unfinished. Don't have a lot of stuff down there, so that's good. But yeah, it's not fun to wake up to that situation. Luckily, we were pretty early to get on call into Roto-Rooter, so they were able to get out to our house fairly early. But they set everything up on Thursday at noon. They packed up and left, so everything's running and all the fans are blowing. They did all the cleaning and everything, and then it starts raining again. Another flash flood. I see my streets flooded again. I was like, oh crap, I got to check the basement, which is also starting to flood. So yeah, I call Roto-Rooter. I'm like, yeah, our basement's flooding again. You guys just left. What do you want me to do with these fans?
That's crazy.
But it's incredible.
Sorry, man. I'm glad it wasn't. It could have been worse. You could have had a finished basement or something. It could have been higher, I suppose. But still, it's really stressful. You seem okay. You're doing good?
Doing good now. Now it's do we pay for another cleaning, which is going to be super expensive. We don't know how expensive this first round was. So I'm just trying to be happy in the moment. But
yeah,
I haven't got the bill yet. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. We won't think about that. Santiago, how you doing, man? What's up tonight? What's up with you this week?
Oh, doing great. It's been a good week so far. Finally got some warmer weather, which is something I enjoy. So happy about that. And fortunately, the rain didn't hit my house. Didn't have any issues like Jake or other people, but it was crazy. Too much rain for me.
Yeah, my only thing, I was out of town, so I was curious what I'd come home to. But luckily we live in a neighborhood called High Point, So like, I think we had
aptly
a
named,
deal,
I hope.
and we were.
Right.
Stuart, how are you, man? I think you were the other one I was actually worried about because you do live in the city and you never know about those sewers.
I'm doing pretty good. So my house is actually on a hill, but I do have, well, no basement in the city is completely dry, so I was getting some flood waters. But for historic rains, I woke up kind of complaining that I had like 2 leaks that were going into my drain in my basement, and then I was seeing people with like 3 feet of waters in their basement and seeing what Jake was going through, and I was so definitely blessed. And Jake, I'm sending you good vibes because that was rough, man.
Yeah. Full house tonight, like I said. Matt Baker's here, the 5th person we're checking in with this evening. How are you, Matt? How's everything?
Everything's going pretty well, and I'm happy.
Are you muted, Matt? Sorry, we're not hearing you.
Nope.
I can hear Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just me. Okay, Matt, you go ahead, and when I see your mouth stop moving, I will continue talking.
People might not get to hear this, but I'll just talk anyway. Yeah, no, it's going well. I'm in the middle of prepping for a 2-week or 8 or 9 day Alaskan cruise that we're going on next week. So we're knee deep in packing, and I'm glad we kind of avoided the third, because I was worried we were going to get a trifecta there because we had like sweltering, record-breaking heat, and then we had these like just otherworldly floods and rainfall, and so I was waiting for a third thing to happen, which thank God it didn't. I'm just sitting here on pins and needles, just hoping nothing else could come our way because it was an insane weather week. I mean, all things considered, at least we got to watch a soccer game. It wasn't anywhere near us. But it was funny because we were playing Tacoma, and I have friends who former neighbors just moved up there. And it was so bad in St. Louis that they called me to make sure that our area was okay. Like, it made national news just how bad it was here. Just historic, wild, awful. Luckily, we escaped without harm. We have a fairly new sump pump that did its job admirably. So I saluted it quite hard. And I'm just thankful for just everything turning out the way it did. And, real quick plug. I know on Saturday for the Fire 2 game, the Luligans are doing a school drive, and I think the entity or corporation that we were going to work with, they had some damage too. So giving them what we can to kind of help in that aspect to people who maybe lost things, people who don't have things. That flood kind of messed everything up for quite a lot of people. And I think it's important to remember just how lucky we are. Jake, as bad as you had it, you're here with us, you're fighting through it. I'm sending you good vibes like Stuart. And that's all we can do. Just a wild time.
So I think someone might need to take over here because I can't hear a word Matt's saying, and I think that's totally fine. I don't know if Jake or Matt or someone wants to just kind of take it from here, and I will maybe re-log in and see what happens.
Are you running the stream though? If you log out, will we be good?
Oh yeah, that's possible. I'll just keep this logged in.
I could log out, Phil, and come back in.
Oh.
Maybe I'll fix it for you.
That's crazy.
I really apologize, guys. I have no idea what's going on. So maybe someone else takes over and I can bow out, or we can restart the whole thing. Which do we vote? And someone communicate to me whatever Matt thinks should happen to.
Matt's gone. He bounced.
Oh, he bounced. So maybe he'll log back in. We'll give it a shot. Let's get this started though. Here, I'm gonna bring him back in. Let's get this started with the Tacoma game. Matt, you want to say something and see if I hear?
I don't really want to talk about Tacoma.
I don't either. I hear you now though. This is
all right.
Nice.
I'm so sorry. I do think that's probably my error or like restream messing up. But now we
That's
can all
okay.
talk about it
I'm
and
fairly
wallow
certain
in
I was
pain
just
together.
droning on and on about floods and prophecies and stuff. It was just probably best that nobody heard what I had to say.
Well, there's a chance that if I didn't get it, my computer didn't either. So that might be edited out.
I'm all right with that.
Love you, Matt. Let's talk about Tacoma. Matt, we're going to finish up with you. You're going to back clean up on this one. But I know I saw a lot of complaining from Stuart. So I know he saw at least part of the game. So I want to start with Stuart. Stuart, what did you see in this game? Get us started.
I think the bigger deal is what didn't I see, and that was a huge chunk of what was going on. The camera work is so terrible. It's reprehensible that MLS Next Pro actually launched the league with this production quality. But that's maybe the better. That was a really, really rough match against Tacoma or Aquila Defiance, as they no longer even play in Tacoma. So I bought with rebrand too.
No, did we lose Stuart?
Yeah, we might have lost Stuart. Santiago, I think you saw
We're just
this
dropping
game.
like flies here, Phil.
I know it's been a rough night. My computer was having trouble too before we even started, so something's going on. Santiago, do you want to continue on with some of the things you saw?
Yeah, well, as Stuart was saying, the stream quality was really bad, so I was having a hard time following the ball and what was going on. I don't know this, and I could do a better job, like trying to plug in the computer to the TV, but I don't know this.
It doesn't help.
Online, stuff online. I don't know. It just doesn't motivate me, so I'm just sitting here watching on the computer, and it was really hard to follow the ball and see what was going on. But I think it was a night to forget for City 2. Like Tacoma outplayed City 2, and they had a lot of options, and like nothing was going right for City 2. First with that PK, like mid first half, and then a goal towards the end of the second half, and another goal early in the second half, and then in a restart after the water break. So things weren't going well for the boys. So I'm sure this is a game Hackworth will look at, and I'm sure things they will correct the mistakes and make sure they bounce back. But it was just a night to forget for St. Louis City too.
Yeah, I'm looking at stats. We can list a few of them that we weren't leading in possession, but often we lead in shots, and especially shots on goal. We were behind in both, or we were ahead in shots 17-16, but behind on shots on goal by 8-4. The stats kind of show me what maybe it looked like, but maybe Matt, you can give us some more details on what you saw.
Well, now I'm curious what site you're looking at for stats.
Oh, I hope I didn't pick the wrong Defiance game. Let me look. No, it's 5-1. Yeah,
Well,
this is MLS Next Pro. Are you having trouble logging into that stat page?
No, I see it. It's just different numbers.
Wow, really?
Yeah, like on the summary, they list us as having 17-16, but shots on goal 8-4.
Oh, I thought that's what I said. I'm sorry if I said something wrong. I'm sure I did.
Yeah, and no, to me, the whole game, we were just slower than they were. And so Santiago mentioned that it kind of started in the 28th minute with that penalty by AJ Palazzolo. And, I was watching it on my TV, trying to stream it from my iPad. And granted, at the time, the players looked like ants. And so you had to do a little, I was able to like rewind it a little bit. I don't know how I was able to, but I did. And it was pretty clear that AJ was about a step and a half behind the guy. And it was kind of just a desperation tackle, and it happened to be in the box. And I think that was emblematic of just at least the entire first half, where we always seemed to be a step behind them, and their attackers were more or less carving up our defense. And the timing in which they scored, and I think Hackworth made this comment in Tom Timmerman's article, but their goals, they're right before the water break, right before half, right after half, right after some subs. There were times where they seemed to just catch us off guard, and they never let up. They were pretty relentless in their attack, and we really didn't. We knew that they had such a powerful attack. They lead the league in goals. They lead the league in expected goals. Santiago and I talked about that on that preview show that we did on Twitter Spaces right before the game. We knew what we were up against. It's just that our defense, whether it was getting caught flat-footed from the press or just not covering the gaps that sometimes we've been deficient in anyway, we know that there have been times where attackers have found space in between our fullbacks and our center backs, and that was exposed pretty heavily in this game and consistently. So like the only time that we ended up scoring, I think it was a quick build-up where Akil Watts just kind of had the ball, laid it off, and then Juan Kuzain just shot it from nowhere almost outside the 18. It wasn't even a like well built up play. It was just individuals making plays happen. And we had more opportunities at least in the second half, but their few stars that we talked about before the game, Alfonso, Campo, Chavez, and Vargas, Marlon Vargas, they tore us up and they never let up. We didn't seem to have any kind of an answer to them. And my only hope going into the game was that our defense knew what they were up against. And so maybe the high press, they knew to maybe cheat back a little bit or take a step back and track back, and it didn't work.
One thing I'll say about Tacoma is that they're one of the few teams that are used to dealing with championship level opposition on a regular basis for 3 years now. I mean, they've been in the league for a long time, and they've had these young players playing since they joined the team. Ocampo, Chavez, and what was the other one? Starts with
Vargas.
Marlon
Vargas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those two have been on that team for like 2 or 3, 4 years. They're experienced against this level and maybe better even, depending on what you consider St. Louis City to be. So,
and they started 6 MLS signed players.
Yeah.
So they had the experience, they had the talent. And I think the other thing that does to me is I had a tweet right after the game, trying to make a positive spin or trying to at least look, as positive as you can in a 5-1 loss. It was almost a reality check at the very least to me. So if you're not going to be doom and gloom about the rest of our season and the players and how they performed, it has to be a reality check. The last time we lost like this, it was a 4-0 loss to Minnesota. And we came back and we won, and then we lost the following game to the Quakes 2 in PKs, and then we went on our streak. But we bounced back after that 4-0 loss. And so I think that's what we have to do against the Fire. And the other reality check to me is almost a reframing, because when you go on the run that we were on, where you lose one match in 10 games, you start to have these lofty expectations. You're cleaning up in the league, and you start to think, all right, maybe 7 or 8 of these guys could move up. And I'm not saying that they can't, but this is kind of you play the best if you want to be the best, and we got shut down by the best. And so that's a reality check to me on reevaluating just mentally the players that we have, the realistic chance of how can we forecast who's going to make the MLS roster, which is an appropriate thought given that tease tonight. But just making sure that we're not hyping up these guys too much. They're very talented. I love every single one of them, but realizing where they are in this league and where they realistically can go next year. Not saying they can't stick around in City 2, get signed to a supplemental deal, those kinds of things, multiple of our players, but realistically thinking, how did some of these guys perform against this level of talent, which, Phil, to your point, is experienced, is on that roster, and has been around for a long time. This was the measuring stick, and I think we had that dose of reality.
Yeah, and perhaps also Tacoma has been a little bit under the radar and up and coming at the same time. So maybe they caught us at the right time. But Stuart, I think my favorite thing that you were kind of getting on about is that every team has a shit game away. Maybe this is just that one shit game away. The Minnesota thing was a weird lineup. This is the first time we've had like our A game coming against someone that we just didn't look right and we didn't look good. I liked what you said there. Do we have you, Stuart? We might have lost you. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. What did you think?
Well, one thing that's interesting is Tacoma has been dominant at home. They have 8 wins, 1 loss, and 1. That was a penalty at home, and away they're 3-2-3. They only have 2 more home games, just like St. Louis City 2 only has 2 more home games. But City 2 is 5-1-1 on the road compared to Tacoma. So we're a much better road team compared to Tacoma. And Tacoma is spending 4 out of the next 5 weeks away. So when it comes to September 18th, we might beat them again if these patterns hold. So overall, not terribly worried. We should have beat them at home, and it was a shit game. It happens. I mean, we did our best, unfortunately.
That was the end of the undefeated streak in away games.
It's true.
What a way to go.
I mean, it's been good, right?
Yeah, it was a good streak. But yeah, as Stuart said, it's kind of one of those wake-up games for the team, and I'm sure the guys will learn from it and correct anything that needs to be corrected. But yeah, it's a good reality check. Maybe we're like, yeah, St. Louis will make the playoffs, but I think it also tempers expectations. Maybe we won't win the league, but yeah, it'll be great to have playoffs and see some of the MLS guys in action in the next few weeks. But at the end of the day, the goal for this team, at least for this year, is development and see which guys can make it to the next level. So the team is still doing that, and if there is playoffs and the team does well, great, that's a bonus. But I think the team is on the right track, and they will bounce back from this one against Chicago.
Last thing I wanted to say about the game was the interesting move to put all the kids in when it was clear we weren't going to win this game. And I wonder if that's like a little bit of a, view of the future, right? Like that our 2 team will become more of a 2 team for the kids because, a lot of these players may be playing up or maybe not. We'll see what happens. But I liked that they did it personally. And I wonder if that'll be something we do more in the future once we're not the top team in St. Louis. I don't know, though. I don't know what you guys think.
I like that we gave Miguel Perez almost an entire half of play. Haven't seen a whole lot of him lately, so it was nice to give him an opportunity.
It was weird to see Hebert leave, though. I saw your tweet about that, Matt.
That was odd to me. So in the same sense of I'm glad to see Josh Mayer out there, it was bizarre to me to see Kyle Hebert taken out with 4 minutes to go. Mm-hmm. I know we were down by 4 or down by 3 at that point, and the game was out of hand, and you want to protect against injuries and the freak things that could happen. But at the same time, I thought it was something that our team and Kyle in particular could hang his hat on, to have played every single regulation minute of every single game so far. There are not even a handful of guys in the league who can say that they've done that. And he can't say that anymore. And it just seemed a little odd for the timing. Could have taken Yarrow out at that time just to get Mayer some minutes and preserve that kind of a streak. I don't know what the reasoning was. I don't know if there was even thought given into the fact that he had that kind of a streak going. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's not something that, him or the team care about. I don't know. It was just something notable because I'd been tracking it, and he's the only player on our roster who had at the time that honor.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we'll get to see these guys again. Is it it's not in our schedule, right? So it would have to be the playoffs.
Would be
okay.
It, yeah.
Yeah.
If standings hold, we'd play them in the conference championship.
I like it. I hope it happens because I think Stuart, you were saying this. Sorry, Stuart. I think you're breaking up quite a bit, but we looked good against them last time, right? So I do think did they come out on top on the last game? But
We beat them the last game. That was the second game of the year after Rochester, where
that makes a difference.
We took the early lead, and then they started to come back. I think they'd scored 2 goals late. We ended up winning 4-3, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started strong, and we kept on them, and then after the subs, they tried to make a run, and we were able to shut them down. That was a home game too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm confusing that with the Whitecaps match.
I was too. Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. That makes sense. Okay, so maybe we'll get another replay of that, and we'll kind of get to see what the true outcome is, and maybe hang our hat on that. Hopefully. Next up is, it looks like Fritz Volmar is an MLS Next All-Star, and Matt, you've been tracking him really well as well, and he's been kind of separating himself from the rest of the academy boys, you noticed, and I liked that you noticed that, and I figured you had some things to say about this.
Well, he, from the start of the season, has separated himself. He was the first academy player to get minutes for City 2.
Surprisingly at the time.
Very surprising at the time. Still somewhat surprising, only for the fact that, we came into the season with expectations for mainly Aaron Hurd because of the accolades, the assumptions of next steps. And so to me, this just says so much about the effort and work he's been putting into practice and leading the U17s to the MLS Next Cup playoffs. I think that this kid's got just the world ahead of him. And I've heard rumors and that he may be pursuing college as opposed to going pro. And there's a conversation being had regarding that. So I find this honor in particular to be very noteworthy when you think of that what is his next step going to be? Because, thinking of, I think it was in our, when City had that tease tonight of somebody's joining Josh Yarrow and who's it going to be? And they had the guess who, and we tossed out Fritz Volmer, and it's not outside the realm of possibility. I think it would be odd and somewhat awkward to announce that now, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that he could be eventually, if he chose to go pro, our first homegrown. And it has nothing to do necessarily with just the fact that he's the first All-Star, but his consistency in the academy matches, not unlike a Yarrow or Hebert have been to City 2. And then he's had experience now in the U.S. Open Cup. He's had probably the most experience of any City 2 player that is on an amateur contract. And there were 45 players chosen, not from 45 teams, but from the entirety of MLS Next. And that's, I want to say, near 100 academies at this point, because they have the MLS academies, and then they have the showcase or the select or whatever it's called, the non-affiliated, the Gallaghers and the Lou Fuses and all of the others. So 45 total players. They're doing an East-West All-Star game on August 10th. And he was the representative from St. Louis. And I don't think, I will easily be proven wrong because I didn't look too hard, but I don't think there were too many players, if any, multiple teams that were of multiple teams. You know what I mean? Like Cincinnati didn't have 2 players. I think it was 1 from each. And not every team got a player. So for us, that tells me that he's on the map of the league. These players were chosen by the MLS Next Player Selection Committee, made up of some key MLS player development department personnel. So those who have been evaluating these players, looking at these games, watching the entire league for months and maybe years at this point. I think they just finished their 2nd year. So these are scouts who know the league, know the players, and have taken an eye to Fritz Volmer. And it's a great honor for him. It's a great honor for St. Louis to be represented in an MLS All-Star game before we even have a team in MLS. How cool is that?
It is very cool. And I want to talk about one thing that we've kind of gone over in our DMs that I think people might enjoy the conversation of live here is, what's the difference between pulling in? So let's say we have Nilsson at center back. Let's say we have Yarrow at center back. And then do we want to be able to lean on like a super draft pick? Say we get the other Mayer, right? The third Mayer kid. And let's say we have some kind of, let's say we pull off Jack Mayer. let's say we don't, and we lean on someone like Hubert or Volmar or the mayor that we do have, what do we do? Or do we go and get ourselves a really high-end center back, say an American at this point, it would be probably like Zimmerman or someone like Aaron Long. And this is the fun conversation of, if we have 3 center backs playing in a game, starting in a game, what do we want? Do we want CONCACAF Champions League level back 3? Do we want, bringing up the kids so that they're amazing someday? Or do we want somewhere in the middle? It's been fun to kind of debate this within our group. What do you guys think?
I have thoughts, but you guys go ahead.
Well, I think you at this point, Nashville has to be the print that we follow. So off the cuff, Aaron Long, like you said, is the number one possibly available option of a guy in his late 20s, like as US national team, great degree, might be available. So if Aaron Long's available, and you can bring an Aaron Long, Nielsen, Joachim Nielsen, center back pairing, I don't think there's any way you can turn that down. I mean, that's just for the league. That's incredible. And then you have, injuries happen, so you want depth. Even Nashville has Romney and Zimmerman as their top 3 center backs, and there's going to be plenty for rotation in games for them. So, if we got a guy like Jack, or we got a guy like played Vol or someone like that to bleed him in a little bit, there's plenty of opportunities. If you get, you're not going to stare a gift horse in the mouth if you get an opportunity like a Walker Zimmerman type center back. You have to take it, and it's fine. There's just no way around that.
I like that thought. And I know we've talked about the LAFC right back, center back that could play in a 3-back position, center back role. Santiago, what do you think?
I like the idea of having two top center backs and playing with 3 in the back. I think that's part of building the team from the back and going from there. Having that experience and having 2 top players as your center backs, I think will set up the team for success defensively. And when you start building the team and looking at what other pieces to add, you know that you have 2 solid pieces that you can build from. So I like that idea.
Kind of hard to argue with. Jake, we got to see Berkey at work the other day, and so we know his quality. So like we could play some academy kids and probably get away with some stuff, right? But I don't know what you would think about that situation.
Yeah, I don't know either. It'd be what I've been thinking or going over in my head right now, like as we're talking about this, is do we think Yaro is ready to like be that starter, or is it going to be? Are we going to bring in someone like? Yeah, if you can get someone like Aaron Long, then that'd be amazing. But can we get someone of that quality in the super draft, or what's the expansion draft?
Expansion draft.
Getting them all mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
So because I don't know if. I think that's what maybe we're going to shoot for. I don't know if it's just like in the off season or when the window's open, or if it's like an expansion draft thing. I think it's going to be who's available. But yeah, at this point, I don't know if Yara is ready to be that starting center back next to Nielsen. What are your guys' thoughts on him specifically?
Matt, I think you got to weigh in here, bud.
Yeah, so starting with Fritz Vollmer, if he chooses to go pro, I would not be the slightest bit surprised to see him named to multiple game day rosters. I don't know about seeing a heavy amount of minutes at all, but I think he'll be named to some rosters. I think he'll get a lion's share of time in City 2. and that's where I see him at this point. He'll get his chance more so than a lot of other players, and I think he does have the talent to help out on the back line, whether it's a 3 center back, whether it's in 2 center back roles. But when it comes to what our MLS back line is going to look like, I want to see us spend big on a second center back. I don't think that's Josh Yarrow as the everyday starter right now. I see Yarrow more as the rotational player coming in the 60th minute to provide that added stamina to finish off a game, providing depth for U.S. Open Cup, Leagues Cup runs. There are a lot of competitions next year. We're going to need a lot of depth, and that's where Yarrow comes in. He might even get some time on City too, not unlike how we're seeing some of the players now. I don't know if he'll be in the supplemental roster, those 21 through 30s. I think Yarrow has the skill and the talent to actually make it on an MLS roster, which would mean his City 2 time would be very limited from what we've seen this year. So almost like spot starts if he needs the extra minutes because he's not subbing in for City. It's kind of how I see Josh Yarrow's role playing out. Aaron Long is an interesting candidate, and I would agree wholeheartedly that if we can get Aaron Long, we get Aaron Long. I think he would go extremely well with Joachim Nilsson. I think Aaron Long is a right-footed center back. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So Nilsson's a left-footed center back. I think that would pair well. Yes. The other center back that I was looking at, Alex Callens, is a left-footed center back. So that would be the only pause I would have there. Callens is an amazing talent. But for Aaron Long, the talk is that he's going to want DP money. We have 2 DPs now. We can get a third. And I'm not opposed to spending a DP slot on a center back. It's
not him, though.
To Stu's point, it's worked well for Nashville, but his age and what kind of contract he would be on, that's the thing that gives me pause about Aaron Long is his salary. I want to.
His injury history.
Yes.
Injury history. I don't know. I think he's asking high, but he's not going to get that earned.
The rumor is that he wants Zimmerman money, and Zimmerman just signed to a DP contract for Nashville. And so I would be weary of relying 100% on Aaron Long going forward. In our roster, the way we've built our roster right now, and I know it's going to change when we start signing MLS players, but every single person that we've signed so far in these international deals is signed at least through 2025. So we're not just building our spine out, we're building our spine for longevity. And I see that second center back role somewhat in a similar manner where I want to sign a center back who is at least of the caliber of Nilsson or similar and is top in MLS. This is the splash right here. So we've looked at our striker. We've looked at like our box to box number 6. I'm still interested in how that attacking mid, that number 8 type role is going to go. But the center back is the other thing that really doesn't worry me yet, but I need to see a splash on that because of what we've seen with City 2. The style of play that Lutz runs out and that Hackworth's been coaching is prone to, we just talked about it with Tacoma, it's prone to be sliced and diced. And when you have players who are allowing gaps between the fullbacks and center backs, and you're needing to track back a considerable amount, you need high quality center backs to fill those roles. Alexander Callens, I think, would do that very, very well. Like I said, the only pause with him is the left-footed aspect where you just have 2 left-footed center backs, and maybe that's just what you do. And his salary would, from what we're hearing on The Athletic, come in around a TAM deal. So we wouldn't have to spend DP money on him. And he would be a free agent at the end of this year. So we just go sign him, you throw money at him, and convince him to come to St. Louis, who we know are craving South American players right now. I don't think that's any stretch of the imagination. So, and he's a known commodity in MLS. Like, this is a guy, he's a top 2 list type of guy. And that's how you make a splash in free agency. Now, whether you want to take a chance and select him in the expansion draft, that's a whole nother question, because the way the expansion draft works is MLS Cup is happening, I think, November 4th. And then it's historically been around 10 to 14 days or so, up to 14 days after MLS Cup when the expansion draft is held. Once the expansion draft is held, free agency opens. So the downside to selecting a free agent in the expansion draft is you may not get them. And we've seen that with Austin. So you have to be weary about that kind of a wheel and deal. But the expansion draft is also, I think, wasn't Walker Zimmerman selected in the expansion draft by Nashville?
I thought they bought him, but you might be right.
It was
it was a trade. I thought.
Or was it was a trade with LAFC?
Yeah, it was right on the time of the draft, so it was
Yeah,
connected to LAFC making.
so I would expect those kinds of deals to be made. So we've been looking at the free agency list, and we talked about it on our last show with I think it was Franco Escobar was the right back, right center back, wing back. Yeah. So Franco Escobar is another very appealing option because we don't have a right back yet. We don't know if we're going to run with a 3 center back with a 2 fullback role. So his versatility would do very well. He's 27. So the age, the dollar amount where he would probably be pushing that max salary, all of that lines up. So that's another exciting free agent option of quality MLS experience. He's an MLS Cup champion with Atlanta. And so you look at how potentially these pieces could be falling very quickly between the free agents we could get after the draft. And then you figure that you can count on 2 or so players to be selected in the expansion draft that can make an impact. We see a lot of trades. We see a lot of movement happen with the expansion draft day of. The surprise ones that happen that have been in the works forever, and then all of a sudden you draft a guy and whoa, you flipped him. So I wouldn't count that out where you just maybe accept some GAM during the draft and get another team what they want. But I look for us to have 2 guys or so in the expansion draft, and then sign at a few of these top free agents. And the other silver lining type thing to what we've been doing international wise that we talked about offline is signing a lot of these guys for free transfers. So we're not breaking the bank on some of these guys, especially when it comes to what we can spend our GAM on. So expansion teams get a boatload of GAM to spend in MLS to try to offset some of these costs and bring down costs of some of these players. We're not spending a lot of that right now. Our really heavy investments have been with our 2 DPs and with Nilsson, who we expect to be on a TAM deal.
But we're about to probably start spending that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here. But like to focus back in on what kind of center back we'd want to bring in as a second. I love that we've listed these 3 that I feel like after Stu, what you said, I thought we would get Long just because of Carnell and because of our system and the situation. Like, especially now that I felt weird about saying that. And I wasn't sure I wanted it, but I thought it would happen. But after Stuart's comments, I think you're right. He's right. Like, you go after that guy. It's too perfect. The name recognition, if you can get him at the price you want. And I love that that's what you were saying. I agree 100%. You get him down to a TAM deal of some sort. We're going to have plenty to go around in that regard. You get him. If you don't, I love Franco Escobar. He's a perfect stand-in in that position. If you're going to find someone that's like the current right back that we got, Franco is perfect. And he can fill in at center back if you play him back 3. It's just too perfect. You know you can get him on a TAM. You know LAFC is not even using him. It's perfect. So, like, we have options. God knows the short list that Lutz has is probably, 10 more center backs on top of that around the world. So, there's no worries here, obviously. This is just kind of fun to talk about, like, high-end center backs that we could pull in. I wasn't sure I wanted to get someone because I do want to see Yarrow get some time. I do want to see Volmar get some time, or even Mayer get some time. But as Matt said, lots of competition.
So here's the thing: if you end up getting Aaron Long or Alexander Callens, and you have 2 top center backs, what do you guys think about plugging in Yarrow as the 3rd center back if you're gonna play with 3 in the back?
He's perfect for it. He played the left side, the center side for San Diego. He's played the right side for us. There's no downside to that, right?
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have a problem with that. and it's coming off the Tacoma loss, so I'm feeling jaded mentally right now about our current center backs and their ability to track back and defend in space. So in a normal week, I'm all in on that, and especially the ability of him to work with Nilsson and potentially Callens or Long or another of those high quality center backs. And then you pop in Escobar out wide right, and you pop in Pedro out left. There's a lot of fun you could have with those.
Yeah, absolutely. We've probably stuck on this a little too long, but to move on to what Matt hinted at a minute ago, St. Louis City not long ago, probably 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, posted the little Guess Who game, and they put all the rostered City 2 players on the on the board on the flip card thing that we all know well if we've all played Guess Who. And it was a fun little thing they did, but they said that one of these players, what player is going to be announced as pro next year? And
joining Josh Yarrow.
Yeah, joining Josh Yarrow. You know, it occurred to me though while we were talking that they could just be talking about Josh. Is that official? Have they announced it as a pro? Okay.
They've announced it.
Let's hope that's not it, right?
That's so real quick. This is my beef. And you know, this is my pet peeve is the lack of knowledge in the general public that Josh Yarrow is signed to an MLS contract. It was announced as soon as he was announced for City 2. It was part of the press release. It's still listed out there. They haven't listed him on the roster at the bottom of the new signings because they're waiting for the City 2 season to end. That's one of the things that caught me by surprise with this tease is they're not waiting for this. So it's a pivot in strategy here of how they're positioning some of these City 2 players. So I love it because it highlights the City 2 players appropriately in my mind, because we all know that we're looking towards next season. There are a lot of people who are discounting a lot of the Gen Pop or the casual fans who don't get as nerdy about it as us. They're discounting City 2 because they don't realize that a lot of these players or some of these players will be on that roster. And this kind of highlights it in a way that I wish Yarrow had been highlighted this entire time.
Completely agree with that. And I guess that's my only worry with this announcement. Not that it would be bad, because we need to educate the public. This is something like we're a little too hipster for everyone, right? So like they need to announce it. They need to make it more obvious. So it could be Yarrow. It could be a boring Kuzain, because we all know that that's probably, we know that he signed to some extent to that team already, right? So those are the boring ones. But we all came up with other ideas as well, right? Volmar is a possibility, although we've kind of all thought maybe no. But what are the other options, guys? Jump in. Not many.
To me, Akil Watts. Yeah, there are too many. There are definitely too many options, but the one that stands out to me is Akil Watts. He has proven that he can play in multiple positions and has done well this year. And the other thing, he has played for Hackworth, so he knows him very well, and I'm sure when they were scouting players, this is a player they looked at closely, and he has done well at this. He has done well at this MLS Next Pro level, and I think he's ready to move to the next level. So hopefully he will get that opportunity.
And if you haven't read it yet, Tom Timmerman had a fantastic article focusing on Akil Watts in the Post-Dispatch, multiple quotes from Hackworth and Lutz about his versatility, even saying, I think it was Lutz who had the quote that, or maybe it was Hackworth, but they had a quote of forecasting Akil as a potential right back option in MLS.
An MLS level.
An MLS, yeah, right. Not that he will be or could be, but he has that ability, and they forecast him in that right back or fullback role. So, I mean, knowing that article came out last week and it had verbiage about that, and they were hyping him up to that aspect of he can play every position, which we've seen him play every position for City 2. I think he's played left back. He's played definitely defensive mid. I think he might have even slid up to attacking mid at one point. At least he plays that role. Definitely a box-to-box in City 2.
Yeah.
And he's played right back. I wholeheartedly agree. Not just because of that article, but Akil's been one of my favorite guys to watch just because he'll slide everywhere, and he always he had the assist, and he helped Juan Kuzain score that goal against Tacoma. He's always finding himself in play, and he at one point was top of the league in goals outside the 18 because he's finding himself in those positions to make plays. And that speaks to his versatility. And if you're really thinking about it, how many times do you see players at any level end up in prominent attacking roles or up the field in lower levels? And then as they're forecasted to where are you gonna forecast in this higher level or in college or in pro, and they end up sliding you back a little bit to a better fit to where your skill would be at that level. This to me lines up perfectly with that thought.
Yeah, Stuart, you had some thoughts about this as well. Might have lost Stuart. Jake, is there anyone that stands out this year for you that you think might be able to make it into MLS? That they might be talking about here?
I just saw this Guess Who thing like right when we started streaming, so I'm catching up. But I saw that there was the article about Akil Watts. I didn't read it because again, I have not really been paying attention to anything. And now that article and what you guys are saying, I'm like, oh man, it's got to be Akil Watts because they like to give us little hints and Easter eggs here and there. And he's right up front. He's one of the first people you can see with his big smile on this Guess Who board. I got it in front of my face. My other guesses would to be, I think in a previous episode, maybe it was a forecast, I said, I don't think Josh Doling is quite ready, but it also wouldn't surprise me if he got a spot. Like we have our striker, we need a backup, and he's proved that he can score and he can hold up play and he can create chances, which is good. And he's a big body. And I mean, that's what it's the similar style, which is exactly, I mean, what we'd expect to see anyways. That's why we sign these guys. And he's been doing a great job. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was him or also Vitor Diaz. I just love his creativity and everything he brings. But yeah, I'm probably sold on Akil Watts. I'd probably put money on Watts at this point.
I like the Doling shout just because, like, I think all the time about like Kyrie Sheldon still being trotted out by SKC on a regular basis. I was like, Doling couldn't do that, And I also think that about what's his name, the striker for the Sounders that's from St. Louis. Why can't I think of his name?
Bruin.
Thank you,
Will Bruin.
Yeah, I kept wanting to say Baylor Bruins. That's how my brain works. Stuart, are you still there? Are you able to kind of comment on this, or should we move on?
Yeah, I'll pop in. So to circle back to what Matt was saying, the more I think about it, the more I kind of feel like they're just doing a Trojan horse here for announcing Josh Morrow being part of the official city roster for next year. He hasn't been the press releases or what the roster that they put out on the website and stuff. But I mean, from what I heard from everyone, that Bain was going to be an MLS player next year. So if he signed the same contract as Yarrow, which was this 1 year MLS next pro, 1 year MLS, then I would expect it would be Kuzain. But there have been so many guys who are impressive. Watts makes sense. A guy like Ezra Armstrong and how much financial backing the team and sign him maybe makes sense if he's dropped out of favor with Kwame taking over his spot on the left side. Akil Watts, Doling, Hebert would make sense, but do you wait to announce these guys until at the end of the year, or do you wait until after the championship final victory to announce that you signed 3 or 4 of these guys? I mean, what's better than you have a celebration in front of the fans to say, hey, we're signed Sergio Rivas to an MLS contract. You'll get your first Washington University to City to City to City. So, I don't know. It feels like it could be one how they're going. This cynical part of me thinks this is how they're going to push the Yaros that we already know about.
Yeah,
I've always thought that would be a great way to cap the season, is to announce like 3 or 4 guys. as this is the graduating class type of thing, or these are our promoted players, or you've seen them all season and now you're going to follow them to the next level.
That'd be awesome.
Which is kind of why I was surprised that they did the tease. I do think it would be weird. I'm not saying that Stu doesn't have a good point because they haven't been hyping Yarrow as a team, but it would be weird for them to caption it with who's joining Josh Yarrow, and then it be surprised it's Josh Yarrow. Remember, he's part of the MLS team.
That's a good point. I completely missed that. So.
Yeah, I think I have I've been surprised that it's coming now as well. I thought it would come later, but the last thing I'll say is that the cynical side of me is seen in USL Championship. Those two teams have always been there, and it's been really interesting to see. Always one of the top 10 players in the USL Championship will switch to a 2 side because they think I'm going to switch to this team and then I'm going to move up to MLS and I'll make it there, and so it rarely works out. Sometimes it does. But part of me knows, and I think part of City knows, that these guys are at least going to hang on for next year. You know what I mean? Even if they don't get that pro contract, if they're down there on the 2 team and the right guy gets injured, they're going to bounce those guys up. I'm sure of it. Right. And I don't even think they'll leave them down there on purpose necessarily and not use them if they're not needed. But there's just this thing that happens in soccer teams and the 2 teams that you can string these guys along probably as long as you want. And some people do, some people don't. So that'll be something to watch in the next year. I think next year, especially, I think a lot of guys will hang on. And then I'm curious what'll happen after next year.
Well, one of the one of the interesting things when we started talking about the City 2 roster and looking at who we signed, there were a lot of college graduates. There were a lot of USL Championship experience, a lot of older guys, early to mid 20s. And so, you're looking at these other teams and they're spotlighting their 18, 19-year-old. And I do think some of these guys who we've signed out of college or with the USL experience, like a Watts or an Ezra, definitely have some great opportunities. But when we think about those who don't make the City roster, you have to wonder how many are going to get brought back for that continuing opportunity, because City 2 is not going away. It's still going to be a developmental team. And how many of those college graduates from this year, how many of those second division guys that we signed for this year, if they don't break into City, are we kind of going to let them go and have their own opportunity elsewhere? Because I don't know what kind of contracts these guys might be on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I just, I hope that if they know they're not going to use them in the pro team, they kind of let them know, because a lot of these guys could be very successful on a really good USL Championship team. I would love to see that as well for them.
Well, one quick thing too, as we think about it, because I know we're running up on time. When I think about who has the opportunity, I tend to look at who's been getting a lot of the time on the field, who's leading our team and playing minutes, who have the coaches wanted to see on the field and shown confidence in. So from the top to the top 10 minutes wise on our team, Kyle Hebert, by far, we've talked about him. Akil Watts is second on our team in minutes, pretty close to Kyle Hebert, to be fair. Josh Yarrow's behind him, Josh Doling, Celio Pompeu, Kuzane, Ben DeRosa, and then Kwame. So a lot of the guys that we've been talking about, but you're looking at Hebert and Watts and Yarrow, Doling and Pompeu and Kuzane. Those are the top guys.
I didn't realize Kwame was catching up. That's impressive.
If you remember, I don't think he started the season as the starting left back. That was Ezra's spot. And Kwame quickly took that and ran with it. And he has a following in Canada. So I think it was Forge FC is where he used to play. Don't quote me on that, but he has there's some guys who are Twitter accounts who are following him. So he has some love and some accolades that are coming his way from Canada, and guys excited to see what he's doing.
Well, he's got a spicy Twitter account. I enjoy reading some of his comments. It's pretty good. We are running late on time, so we're going to do 2 more topics. I'm making an executive decision. I
can't hear you, Phil. You're cutting out.
Yeah.
Another half an hour to talk.
I'm so glad we talked about what we did. So I'm sorry if you don't like that kind of thing. That's my fault. I want to talk about the rumored Rasmus Alm signing. Matt, I think you should talk to us about this one. I only looked him up. Pretty similar production on a much higher level to Jensen. But what have you read from this guy so far?
Definitely a higher level. Jensen, I don't think, had broken into a first team yet. He was still playing for the U19s with his squad.
Right.
And so I actually, the first thing I looked is, Rasmus Alm, there was an article that was in my browser, told me it was in Croatian. That, so it's I don't know if that's where, it could have been Swedish. I don't know, but.
Yeah, it was Swedish.
Okay. So translated from Swedish, that said that he was in conversations to be signed by St. Louis City to start off their season next year, would sign for their second tier team. So it had a lot of the details that I'm not used to seeing from foreign sources who seem to be more in the know of what our team is going through and what he's actually getting involved in.
Yeah.
So that gave it an aura of credibility to me, even though I have no idea how credible the source is. But Rasmus Alm, 5'9", 26 years old, about to turn 27 in 2 weeks. Swedish, he's a right winger. His current contract expires at the end of this year, and he plays for a first division Swedish team called Elfsborg. He's played for them since 2019. That team he finished second in 2020, fourth in 21, and ninth so far this year. They run a summer league like MLS, and so he's in the middle of his season, and which is important because his contract runs until December. If we sign him at that point, it would be likely on a free transfer. But if we get him for some reason ahead of that, we would have to pay the transfer fee to get him out. Right winger does fill a role for us. We assume that Tomas Ostrak would fill right winger, but he's been listed as an attacking mid, except for in the press releases lately where they've listed him as a winger, which he has played a little right wing. Alm is a primary right winger, and he's made 96 appearances for Elfsborg, has 26 goals, 15 assists. And before that, he had 85 appearances for Landskrona in the second tier of Sweden with 12 goals and 15 assists. So he's a goal scorer. He's got some good production, and he has highlights on YouTube. Go check him out. It was pretty impressive to see some of the give and goes that he had and the way he was finding space and playing both out on the wing wide, but also working his way in center and in the box. So he was pretty exciting to see. And because I like to check this piece out, FIFA 22 had him rated as a 66. Which, if you're comparing him to our other signings, Klaus was rated a 71 and Ostrak was rated a 61.
Yep. I was kind of thinking that already, actually. That's really funny. I was thinking that's about the levels. And it's interesting to see Swedish players come over to the U.S. Like, I don't think the Sweden league is that much higher than MLS, if at all.
So I looked into that part. And on globalfootballrankings.com, they have an SPI, which is a soccer power index, where they take different leagues, they calculate the average based on the league they belong to from 538, so stats heavy. And MLS is ranked 15th in the world on their list of leagues. And the Swedish, what was it? The Swedish Allsvenskan is 27th. Right.
Where's Denmark? Is that? I'm curious about Jensen.
Danish. No, not Danish.
Superligaen, I believe.
They don't.
17.
Oh yeah, the Danish SAS Ligaen.
Very close.
17th. Yeah, so Major League Soccer 15th. The Danes are 17th, and this league we're talking about, the Swedish First League, Allsvenskan, 27th. So you're looking at the level of competition in that league. MLS, if you're looking at the stats, should be a higher level of competition.
Cool. I like it. That's really exciting stuff. I love, we love the player news. Let's finish this episode.
Phil,
go ahead.
Sorry, real quick, because I've seen Facebook comments and Twitter comments. This would be our 8th and final international slot signing.
I'm missing the chat stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's well, yeah, I guess
we could trade and likely will trade. So those, the South American talent that we know is there that we're supposedly scouting, but we haven't heard anything of. We can and probably will trade some GAM for international slots, but of the ones that were allocated right off the bat, this would be the 8th.
Yeah, so I'm sure we may trade to get more and get those South American players. But yeah, for me, I'm a little biased, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing a South American signing. But we're gonna have to wait for that. And if the team doesn't get any more international spots, there'll be an indication that any of those free agents or any of or those players they get will be U.S. U.S. born or green card holders. So it'll be interesting to see if this will be our ADP and see what happens if the team is going to be willing to trade monopoly money to get more.
Is Jensen signed to a pro deal for sure, or a MLS deal for sure?
Yeah, they announced him.
Yeah.
Okay. I just feel like he could have been stored down on the 2 team, but we could do it. I only feel bad because I think I got really angry when Charlotte started buying international slots, and now we're clearly going to do that. I mean,
Hey, the other thing I wanted to mention, maybe by early next year, some of these earlier signings will be green card holders. So that will open some more international slots for the team.
The benefit of signing these guys
Charlotte.
and getting them here right now. That's what that is.
Speaking of Charlotte, right? They did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think I read into this earlier this year, but we do have a law firm on retainer that specializes in green cards, and
Love it.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. But we're going to finish the episode with a preview of our game against Chicago 2 coming up. Chicago Fire 2. They're not doing so great. Second to last in the in the Eastern Conference. Third to last, 8th place. So I don't know. What do we think is going to happen? Matt, we got to start with you on this.
I think it's our bounce back. I think we thump them. It's a home match. Last time we played the Fire 2, we beat them 5-0 at their home turf up at SeatGeek. The Fire 2 are a terrible team. They have they've proven that time and time again. They've been in some up and down form lately. They've beaten FC Cincinnati 2. They've lost to Orlando City B, and they've won in PKs against Rochester. FC Cincinnati 2 and Orlando City B, of course, are the only 2 teams worse, I believe, than the Fire, or right there as bad as the Fire 2. So they're knocking around and losing to teams at their level. We have a score to settle, I think, coming back strong and have some extra bulletin board material here. And when you look at some of the stats, the biggest differences I see are in the goals against. And so the Fire 2 have allowed a whole lot more goals than we have. They allow more shots, and they've allowed 37 goals. We've only allowed 22 goals. The other huge factor for them is how they play. And you can look to the passing stats for this indication. So they pass the ball a whole lot more than we do, which is not too unusual for teams we play. So we just don't have that many passes. We don't possess the ball a whole lot. We know that, but we actually have more accurate forward zone passes than they do. So they have us outnumbered total passes by 1,200. We have them outnumbered by 300 of accurate forward passes. So we play the ball forward a whole lot more than they do. We succeed in moving the ball and creating chances and getting shots off. They like to play the ball in the back. They have over 1,600 more accurate back zone passes than we do. So our press, and we saw it very well in that first match, our press can easily disrupt them, keep the ball back, prevent them from creating chances. And all we have to do, to me, is play our game. So we showed that first match that if we play our game, we're going to beat them. And I think this is another perfect opportunity, and we need it right now after that Tacoma match.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a playoff preview coming up in a few weeks. I've already got some thoughts, but that's a really good preview, Matt. I appreciate all those thoughts. Definitely stuff I hadn't looked into or thought of. Love the forward pass stat. That's a good one to bring up in this situation. Anyone else have comments on that before we go?
Well, definitely bounce back game, and also important because after this game, City 2 is going to have 5 straight games playing away. So important to win this one, position at the top of the table or top 2 positions, and see what the team can do during this 5-game streak playing away. So it's an important game, not only to bounce back, but to go away in a good position.
Absolutely.
And we can't take for granted the playoff position either. So we're in second place right now. We're only 5 points clear of the 5th place Earthquakes 2. So a bad run of form by us, and we're out of it. But this is an opportunity to stay pace with Defiance, Dynamo 2, North Texas, and we still have a game in hand for all 3 of those teams.
Yeah, well, and we have to play North Texas and Dynamo away. So
Yep.
So all these games coming, some of them will be against direct rivals. So yeah, it's important to beat Chicago and go on that away trip on a high note.
Completely agree. And we might be incorporating new players, right? So we'll see.
We did get a question on Twitter asking about if we're prioritizing development or winning. And I think that the players coming in from MLS, to me, try to tell a little bit of that story, in the sense that to me, we're prioritizing development above all else. But they go hand in hand in the sense that if you're not, in order to develop, you need to win, and you want to give guys those experiences and the confidence. But if we wanted to strictly win at all costs, I think we would be getting Klaus in there. We'd be getting Pedro in there. We'd be starting Berkey every single match. And we're not doing that. So it is a very much a balancing act of developing the guys who need developed, keeping fit the guys who are eyeing next year. But yeah, I hope we see Klaus here pretty soon. You figure if we're going to see him, it's either going to be the last game at home or he's going to be making an away trip.
Yeah, I think he'll make away trips. I think in another week or two, we may see an appearance. No?
I think
any inside information there, Matt?
No inside information, but I think we see an appearance from Klaus, similar to Berkey. And I don't want to get into it, the Berkey Creek and McGrain comparisons, but I think it's that speaks to the development aspect of our team. When you look at, we're starting Creek over Berkey, and we're going to give McGrain more minutes. I think and don't forget, if we started and played Klaus from here on out, what would Josh Doling do?
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
He's the guy he's one of the guys we just talked about. We need to see him develop, and we need to see him in this home stretch because we want to see him next year.
I foresee another 20 minutes of conversation if I say anything else. So we're going to stop there. Thank you guys so much if you're still listening. Full house. I love it when we got all 5 of us. So guys, thanks so much for showing up. We'll be talking to everybody in another week. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye, guys.